What's next?
What's next is the dreaded stone paradox.
He said dreaded, like anyone anywhere, any theist anywhere is cowering or shaking or quaking over this idea, this question that they've made for themselves, this fence that they've made around themselves, just to convince themselves to continue in their ideology or in their belief. Now let's listen to them for a little while, and then we talk about ways to untangle the messed up thing that they're presenting to themselves.
Okay. Yes, that was a good one. Okay, anyway, the question is, could God create a stone so heavy that he himself could not lift it? If yes, then there's something that God can't do, namely lift the stone, and so God can't be omnipotent. If no, then there's also something God can't do, namely create the stone, and so God can't be omnipotent. Either way, God can't be omnipotent, so an omnipotent being is impossible.
Yes. God is crushed under the weight of this metaphorical rock.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. You talked about omnipotence. I think most people, when they're defining God, do say God is omnipotent. That is sort of all-powerful. So one easy way out of this is just to say, I believe in a God who's not omnipotent. Problem solved instantly. He just can't do like all things. Cool, easy, that's fine. But a lot of people want to say, no, God is all-powerful. So if God is all-powerful, then is this not a paradox, Joe?
I don't think so, no. I mean, we really just have to get clear on what exactly it is to be omnipotent, right?
Exactly.
So the argument here is trying to infer that God is not omnipotent from the fact that God can't do something. But that doesn't follow. Since if something is an impossible task, then God's inability to do it, that's no threat to his omnipotence. I mean, omnipotence, as theists typically understand it, is, to at least a very rough approximation, something like the ability to do whatever is possible. Yep. And so, if something is impossible, well, then, I mean, of course God can't do it, but it's also no threat to his omnipotence that he can't do it. Because again, omnipotence is just the ability to do whatever's possible.
It's so obvious that, like, if you say, well, omnipotence is the ability to do anything, and you could just think, okay, well then, can God do an impossible thing? Well, hold on. Yes? No, we can't do something that's impossible. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? And so instantly it's just this paradox. And that's so sort of obvious and self-defeating that this can't be what we mean by omnipotence. Like you say, a good definition of omnipotence is the ability to do anything that's possible. So God can't make a square with 3 sides. But as you say, that's not a threat to his omnipotence because it's just something that's not possible. This does, at least, somewhat uncomfortably maybe, put like restrictions on God. It seems like there are these things called logical laws which sort of constrain God and what he can do. Like if God really wanted a triangle that had 2 sides, like he just sort of couldn't do it, even if he really, really wanted to. I mean, in a sense, Joe, that might seem like a strange thing to want, but like I would love genuinely to see like a triangle with 4 sides. Like, wouldn't you love to see it? Like, that would be awesome. Like, if I said, dude, I've got this triangle with 4 sides, I've drawn it on a piece of paper, do you want to see it? You'd be like, yes, I want to see that. That sounds like the most interesting thing in the world. So for God who can do anything, he must be like, what? How fascinating it would be to see a triangle with like 4 sides, but he can't do it. And so it seems like God is like constrained in a way that might make some theists uncomfortable.
Oh, it's a simple question you need to answer. Who gave a rectangle the name rectangle? Who gave a square the name square? Who gave a triangle the name triangle? God did? No, he didn't. Who gave them those names? We did. Why did we give them those names? We mean being human beings, that is. Why did we give them those names? Because of their shapes. If a triangle has more than 3 sides, you will not call it, they will not call it a triangle. They'll call it another name. Perhaps a hexagon, perhaps a square, perhaps something else. Pentagon. They will not call it that name. Why? Because it's no longer having the set of sides or angles as we would expect it to. So a triangle with 4 sides is not a triangle. It doesn't beat God's reason, it beats our reason. And the idea of God creating a stone he cannot lift, or not being able to create a stone he cannot lift, that is not a dilemma for God, it's a dilemma for us. It is it affects our own rationality. If God ever would do that, we will not even be able to be able to reason it out. Well, because we fail to understand that some of these arguments are not beyond his reason, it's beyond our reason and our ability to assimilate these things. So it will make no sense for it to happen because it's not in our ability to rationalize this. And there are many things that God can do, many things when it comes to just as they said, omnipotency and all those kinds of things. But many of them are beyond our ability to rationalize. So they make up these walls and these rules, and then they try to apply it to God, and it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't show God's incapacity. It just shows our incapacity. It shows our lack. If God were to ever do any of these irrational things, we would not be able to understand it. If God created a square cycle, we would not be able to rationalize it because our minds were not wired that way. You could try to imagine it, you will not even be able to imagine it well. But now I'm not one to say God can do all those things. And the reason I can't say this is because I would be taking a false presumption. I'll be trying to assume something about God that he has never said about himself. What he had said about himself is he can do all things. That's what he said. Nothing is impossible for him. And I'll just take him at his word. He can do all things. Now, if you make up all those things, I'll tell you to your face. Well, you have to ask him yourself. I can't answer for him. That's the best way to answer these people. This is something beyond my ability. I'm not God. I can't answer for him. If you are asking, can God create a stone that is too heavy for him to carry? I say, well, I don't know. You ask him yourself. And if you're saying that can God, well, however, whatever argument you want to bring, can God create a square cycle? Can God create a bending straight line, or whatever irrational idea you can come up with? My answer would be I don't know. All I know is he can do anything. Perhaps he can do it. Perhaps. But the reason I say I'm at this position is because I've learned certain things about God. You can't put him in a box. You really don't know. And I want many Christians to understand this. You really don't know the extent of God's power. He will shock you. He would embarrass you with his power. He would surprise you. The very things that you are thinking, that even I have been thinking is illogical, have been proven to me to be very possible. The things that I have once thought God cannot do, it doesn't make sense that God will be able to do. He was able to. Now I'm not talking about sinful things. No. I'm talking about just the extent of his power. As though to just tell me, even you Christians have been putting me in a box and you can't. He shocked me concerning certain things. So don't answer these people on their own turf. I've had many wonderful answers, and I'm going to put one of the answers right here. But my position is one. Just tell them you don't know. Right? If you really don't know, tell them, well, that is not for me to answer, it's God to answer. If I tell you that he can't do that and then he can actually do it, I would be a liar. And if I tell you he can do that and he can't do that, I will be a liar. That the best person to ask is God. All I know he said is that he can do all things. So perhaps he can do this. In fact, given his word, he can do that. He can do it whatever way you want, but it will beat your imagination. That is the bottom line. It will beat your imagination, and it will not be able to limit him as you think. He'll put you in a place that you can't escape from. That is just it. That's just the awesomeness of God. He's just what he is, and nobody can say anything besides that. Amen.